Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad to welcome you back to our show again this evening. And we're very happy there are people like you out in our area that are interested in what's happening in the cities in Northwest Community Television's viewing area. Because it is important for good government that there be an exchange of ideas back and forth between the citizens that live in the city, the people on the council who are governing it, and between the staff that's in the city. So we're glad that you're interested, and we encourage you to take down, particularly if you're from Maple Grove, take down the email and phone number. So if you've got some information that you want to share or you have a concern, that you can be in contact and let people know. If you haven't watched our program before, each week we'll have somebody on from one of the 9 cities that will fill us in on what's happening in that city and what are the current issues that the city is dealing with. And from time to time we'll have other groups that interact with all of our cities. So we're glad that you're with us tonight. And tonight we're going to be learning about Maple Grove. We've got Mayor Mark Steffenson. We're very happy to have you back on our show again.
Glad to be here again.
Yeah, you've had many experiences with us over the years.
Yes, we have. And it's been great.
And so you already know I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself out to our wider audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself and your background in Maple Grove.
Certainly. I'm Mark Steffenson. I'm the mayor of Maple Grove. I've been the mayor for the last 15 years. I first started serving on the city council in January of 1997 and have done so ever since. My wife and I moved to Maple Grove back in 1987. I'm an attorney in Maple Grove at a firm called Henningsen and Snoxville. I've been there for a little over 20 years.
Wow.
And so, really have a lot of deep ties to the community. And
definitely.
Grew up in the northwest suburbs and went to Robbinsdale High School back in the 70s. So, back before it was closed. So that's a long time ago now. But certainly I grew up in this part of the cities and I think have a good understanding of it.
Definitely. And you've seen all the changes and how things have built on each other.
I have seen how things have built on each other. I'll date myself by remembering when County Road 18 was opened, which is now 169.
Right.
So that was a long time ago, but that was certainly shows how things have developed out here. How
definitely.
Maple Grove was all gravel pits and farms and a few homes around Osseo and a few homes around Weaver Lake, and that was pretty much it.
Right. Yeah, because I had asked you what Maple Grove was like when it had its early beginnings. Because did people start moving there like before the Civil War, I think?
Yeah, before the Civil War, there was a few settlers that came up here. I think the first one was considered to be Pierre Bottineau.
Right.
From sort of the fame that we've talked about naming a parkway after him now. And I think that he was one of the first settlers of the state of Minnesota. And he did actually settle in Maple Grove, and that's where he lived. And we have restored his house, and his house is located up in the Elm Creek Park Reserve today.
Right, so people can see a view into the past.
A view into the past, and it's a very interesting place.
And then I asked you also, because we're always encouraging people to get involved. If somebody is sort of thinking about maybe they want to be part of the city council or that type of thing, do you have any advice to give them, just briefly?
Well, I think if you want to get involved in the city council down the road, one of the best pieces of advice I can give to you is get involved in something that you enjoy in the community.
Right.
We have a lot of community organizations. You can choose what you like to do. But I think it's really important to get involved in your community. If you want to be in public office, it's important to have had some background and be involved in those aspects of people's lives and be involved in giving back to the community. And certainly, if you don't want to run for a city office, certainly we have a lot of commissions and other roles you can play with the city. But I think one of the greatest things you can do is give back to your city by being involved in some type of community or charitable organization that's located here.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times you get back more than you give.
You do, and there's a lot of ways to do it. I mean, we certainly have the Maple Grove Community Organization. There's a lot of athletic organizations. I know that a lot of parents end up involved in those athletic organizations because their kids are involved, but that's certainly a great way to give back to the community. And there's a lot of theater and other types of organizations.
Now, something that we've been talking about ever since you started coming on our show about 11 years ago is Highway 610. And How many years again? Because I think you've told me that before, but is this whole process been going on?
This process has been going on for decades.
Yeah.
I think that to put it in best perspective, it first showed up on the city plan in 1969, I believe. The city first bought land for this project in the early 1970s.
Right.
And so if you lived in the northeast quadrant, north of Osseo, back in the day, you would have gone over some bridges in some areas where you've seen land, for the future Highway 610. And I know that way back in the day, one of the elementary schools up there was built on the north side of 610 because 610 would be there any day.
Yeah.
And here we sit 40 years later, and it's still not completed.
Right. When did they complete it up to 169? I forget.
That would have been, I believe, 1990. No, it must have been 2001-ish. 2001-ish.
So what is currently happening on the construction? Because as people take 94 out of the cities, you can see construction out
on the west end, yes. Yeah. So what's happening right now is from about Elm Creek Boulevard going west to the freeway, that is I-94, they're completing 610. And so the freeway will be completed. It should be open in the fall of 2017. There won't be a full interchange at this point at Highway 610 and I-94. That's left to be completed.
Okay.
But everything else will be completed. So the ability to go directly from 610 north onto 94 or west on 94 will be completed. The ability to come south on 94 and go east on 610 will be completed. The interchange at Maple Grove Parkway will be completed. The interchange and the overpass for 610 to go over the railroad tracks and under the high lines and back over Fernbrook by the high school will be completed. So all those roadways will be completed by next fall. And it'll be open. It'll be open.
So it should be a big help to our area, and your city particularly.
It should be a great help to our area in a lot of different ways. I know that for both Brooklyn Park and Maple Grove, it means significant new development, significant new commercial and office development. Obviously, Brooklyn Park's already seen that along the 610 corridor, and we will see that in Maple Grove shortly.
And then traffic, because I was just out coming in from the west and looking at all the east, looking at all the traffic slowly inching along. Hopefully it'll make some big changes there too.
It should make some big changes, and I think that the next big thing that, at least in our area, that MnDOT will have to address is I-94 going from the Fish Lake interchange out to Rogers. Something is going to have to be done there, because I don't think that the car volume continues to go up. And so that's something that will have to be done there.
So that's the next stage of helping traffic in our area?
Yes, I hope that's where it should go.
And then now at this point, to make a full interchange there, it's going to take more money from
It takes, I think it's about $40 million or 20.
To complete
just a little interchange.
So you have to still do some lobbying and
we'll still be doing lobbying out in Washington D.C. and talking to our state legislators and the governor about completing the roadway the way it was designed. Let's put the money, get it done right, and then it'll be ready really for the next phase of where development goes after that.
Is that the kind of process where getting citizens to send letters or emails is helpful?
Sure, I think that's always helpful, just to remind them that the project isn't completed. Even though the connection's made, it's still not a completed project, and we need to complete it so that the roadway functions the way it was supposed to function.
So we'll encourage people
We'll encourage them to do that. You can send a little email to your senators or congressmen saying, hey, I'm stuck in traffic again.
Let's finish this road off
Finish the road and life will be better for me.
Now, there is road construction going on in Maple Grove, too. I think that's going on over our whole northwest area.
Everywhere there's road construction, but I think that in particular, right now, the big development is I-494. And the addition of a third lane in each direction there.
Definitely.
They're moving right along. You can see the development happening. So my understanding is that they'll be done with the 3 lanes on the west side of 494 this year. And I'm not sure if they plan to open up all 3 lanes to start with or what their plan is. And then next year they will complete the east side of 494.
Many people will be happy when that's completed.
Well, it'll be a great addition. It'll be, obviously an additional lane down to Highway 55, the way it was designed to be, the way it's supposed to be. And then it should take a lot of, traffic off our local roads. Because what's happening today is with the backup of the traffic, everybody's looking for the alternative shortcut, shorter route or faster route, and that means people get off the freeway or never get on the freeway and travel Bass Lake Road or Northwest Boulevard or all those other roads. And so a lot of that traffic should go back to where it was designed to be, which is on 494.
And neighborhoods will be much happier.
And neighborhoods will be much happier.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also you're doing some construction on Lawndale?
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us what's happening.
In connection with Plymouth, we are completing the Lawndale sort of road that goes down as you go south at Maple Grove on Lawndale. It then curves over to the Wayzata High School.
Oh, yeah.
And so that will be open here right about the time that school starts. And so that'll be a very nice connection for all those people in Maple Grove who go to Wayzata High School that live in that southwest part of our city. They'll have a direct open road to the high school this fall.
Oh, yeah, because when you've got kids in high school, there's always things back and forth from your home to the school.
And right now, it probably takes you an extra 5 to 10 minutes each way because of the way you have to go to get there.
And so it's going to be a 4-lane road?
It's going to be a 4-lane road that'll be it connects the 4-lane road in Maple Grove into an existing 4-lane road in down in Plymouth right in front of the high school.
So people can look for that to be done?
That will be done here in September, yes.
Another project that will have many happy people.
Another project, happy people, another project checked off the list.
Now, does that Lawndale construction involve any businesses?
It does not. It does not. I mean, it's all residential down that part of the city. There aren't any real businesses in that location. It's all residential.
Now, when you're doing road construction, if people are experiencing problems because of the construction, what can they do or who can they talk to?
Well, usually we suggest
work?
that you talk to the Director of Public Works in our city. I know that, for instance, when we have repaving of the local neighborhoods, that's how we set it up, so they contact the staff within the Public Works Department so we can deal with their issues. And oftentimes their issues have to do with, where does my mailbox go? How do I get my mail? When is my driveway going to be blocked? When will I not be able to get into my driveway? And we try to make sure we work with everybody in the neighborhoods as we're doing that work so they know when they won't have access to their driveways. They always have access to their neighborhood and their roads, but it's important that people understand how the process is going to work.
Oh, definitely.
So we make sure that we have really good communication lines with the public, and certainly if you ever have road issues, that's really the first place to go.
So it's always good to know who to go to if you're saying, oh, I'm tearing my hair out over X.
Or, oftentimes in the springtime, a good example is potholes.
Yes.
If you have potholes, that's where you start Public Works and let them know where the potholes are, and they'll get out and fix them when they can.
Well, and when you're working on construction in the city on roads, you always start out by informing people that you're looking into doing a project as the first step, right? Right.
I mean, so for us in our city, if we're doing, for instance, periodically the roads in the neighborhoods have to be redone through an assessment process generally in our city. So we will generally do what we'll call a neighborhood survey in what we call sort of a 5-year plan. We know, for instance, the asphalt should have a life expectancy of a certain number of years. And so shortly before that life expectancy is going to expire, we go out and really do a survey of the community in that neighborhood saying, do you think your neighborhood roads need to be redone? If you do, when do you think they need to be redone? And so we usually try to get a consensus of the neighborhood as to when the roads need to be redone, and then we'll put them into that year of the plan so that really the road, we don't want to redo a road too early. But we don't want to wait.
It's expensive.
It's expensive, but if you wait too long, it costs you a lot more to redo the road because some things deteriorate. And you don't want the subsurface, the sort of the road base, to start having real problems. It's a lot cheaper just to mill off the tar and put down new tar than it is to go in with equipment and fix
all the way down
to the sewer pipes and other things. So there's really a process that's involved, and I think that most of the citizens that have been involved in the process really like the way it's worked, because it's given them input into what we do and when we do it.
So, and you need that input too. You want
well, we want it because, you know, it's hard for us sometimes to say, do you really think you need a new road or not? And it's amazing how over the years I think we found that neighborhoods will come to an agreement, a consensus. They know when their roads are deteriorating, when the potholes are happening, and I need my road redone.
Now, I was following an article in the Star Tribune, and it was just recent, and it was talking about the suburbs moving more into tax increment financing, whereas Minneapolis was kind of backing off about it. So I thought this will be an interesting topic for me to talk with various cities about, to see what's happening and help people get a greater understanding of, when they see that come up in the newspaper, what does that really mean for the city. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that tax increment financing, which we can say TIF, right? As an easy way to talk about it, was originally set up to deal with blighted areas and to bring in jobs. Is that your understanding?
I think that historically it was designed to bring in jobs, and that it has transformed into really dealing with blighted areas and redevelopment of areas. And then it's also been included for, historically, it really allowed development in a lot of different locations, a lot of different ways.
Right.
The legislature probably early 2000s really limited the use of TIF, and now I think that some of the cities are finding other ways to use TIF.
Sure. So I thought, well, we'd let people know a little bit more about this. So can you explain briefly, because I know you do it very well, what really is tax increment financing? What does that term mean?
Well, tax increment financing is sort of a difficult concept, but to explain it hopefully in a straightforward way is that what is done is that you agree that for a period of time or for a dollar amount, essentially what you do is you capture the taxes that are increased because of the development of that property.
Right.
So if you have a property that is, we'll call bare farmland, and let's say the farmland was producing $10,000 of taxes a year, and you have a new development that's bringing in $110,000 of taxes a year, that tax increment is $100,000.
Right.
And so what the city will do is we will capture that $100,000 essentially, and there's different methods of doing this, but generally cities today do what's called a pay-as-you-go TIF financing, so that you don't pay any money to the developers or to the people who own the land. They don't get certain dollar amounts. They only get the amount of the actual increment that's increased.
Right.
And so over a period of time, there's an increment that is accrued to the parcel, and it really offsets the taxes that are payable by that entity.
Right.
So essentially, it's a way of providing an incentive for them to come to your city without really any property taxes for a period of time.
Right. Now, there are only certain kinds of things, I don't know, things isn't the right word, certain types of uses that you can take that money and put it towards. Maybe you can speak to that.
Sure. So depending on the type of TIF that you have, or TIF area that you have, and some of these are dependent on whether they were legislatively created TIF districts or if they're actually under the general TIF law. But generally speaking, you can use TIF for redevelopment purposes that deal with mixed uses, commercial uses, and retail uses. I think that most often cities try to use it for commercial uses, but I think that, as the article pointed out, is a little bit different today.
Right.
There's been a lot of mixed use or a lot of residential uses as well, which I think is atypical from the historical use of TIF.
Right. And then it can only be used to get the land ready and the roads and the streets, and is there some restriction there?
There's restrictions on what the value of the TIF can be, and the TIF is based upon certain redevelopment costs or development costs that are related to sort of preparing the land for actual development. And so that's what they're really talking about when they're talking about that. So for instance, in Maple Grove, we have a new gravel mine area TIF district, and essentially That TIF district is designed to recoup the additional costs that are occurred because you're developing in a gravel mining area.
Oh, right, right.
And so it seems strange, but because the land has been gravel mined, there are significant costs with actually developing that land that you wouldn't otherwise have.
And that you had to take through the legislature,
and that
right?
we got through the legislature.
So it puts you on an even playing field with other pieces of land.
Right, and because otherwise, I think that especially with our TIF area where, really the metropolitan area, most of the roads have been built out of the gravel that was located in Maple Grove, and that's saved the state hundreds of millions of dollars over the years by not having to ship it in from elsewhere. It made sense for the legislature to give us approval so that we could be back on an even playing field with the neighboring communities.
Now, the property taxes, which are part of TIF financing, also go to the county and the school districts. So how are they affected?
Well, they're affected because they don't get the money from the TIF. So their portion of the taxes that would normally go to the school district or go to the county actually go to the increment, and so they do not. The school districts don't see an increase in those taxes, or the county doesn't see an increase in tax dollars for those developments until the TIF district is over.
Yeah, so they're getting what they had gotten before you started developing.
Right.
That tax still continues
that
to come in.
tax continues
but
to
they
come
aren't sharing in the
additional
the additional taxes that come in.
Not under TIF, but there was a tax abatement, which some cities have used the tax abatement. That is done on a city, county, or school district basis. So I think probably the best example, I believe, is in our area town in recent times is the Brooklyn Park Target facility, where the city did a tax abatement, and I don't believe that the county or the city or the county or the school district did.
So sometimes there's a little bit of disagreement over the process, or not?
Well, I think that in that case it was a little bit of the city wanted that proposal, and I think that Target took the position that they didn't want to shortchange the school district on their taxes, and so that's how they came to that tax abatement.
And then the other part that I was gaining from this article and little bits that I'm putting in my head to understand it better is that cities have to be careful how much they put into TIF development because it'll affect what you can do in your city budget.
Absolutely. I think that you have to realize that when you have a TIF project, there are new and added costs for the city for that project that you're not receiving tax dollars for. So, oftentimes there's additional police work or additional public works. Obviously, when it snows, you have to have the plows plow those new roads. And so you have a series of new costs, and there isn't the taxes that are supporting those new costs. So as a city, you have to be very careful about how much TIF you use, because otherwise the residents of your community end up paying much higher taxes because of those TIF projects.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought of that till I was reading the article, so that cities have to be careful when they're using it and maybe get some good financial advice.
Absolutely, because it can have really, really long-term effects.
And then what do you think is a reasonable time for these districts in terms of gathering the money in before they're completed?
I think it depends upon the type of project that's involved. There are certain type of projects or areas that are going to take a long time to develop, and so having them be 20 or 25-year tax increment districts makes sense. There are other times where you have a specific development that's going to be all done immediately, and really you need to, as a city, figure out what increment are we really wanting to provide to that business, and how long do we want that district to last for. So, for instance, in Maple Grove, a number of years ago, we did a TIF district for Boston Scientific's new location there in Maple Grove, and I think that we did a 5-year TIF there. So, essentially, the benefit that was provided was a 5-year TIF, not a 20-year TIF. And so they sort of got the benefit for 5 years, and then that was done. And then they were on the tax rolls.
Right. So it really depends on the project.
Depends on the project and depends on how the city views the project.
And how many TIF districts does Maple Grove have at this point in time, roughly?
Right now we have one district that's going to be closed here in the next year or two, and then we don't have any others that are existing. we as a city haven't used TIF a lot.
Yeah, that's what you were saying earlier, right.
And so, the reality is that we don't have TIF districts. We historically haven't provided a lot of benefits to businesses or other people to come to the city. So that's different than a lot of other neighboring communities.
Now, we have just a little time left, but I thought we could touch on the fact on the city of Maple Grove's 2016 budget, because you're kind of getting in full process for that. So maybe kind of tell people what's happening.
Sure. So every year, obviously, we go through a budgeting process. It starts fairly early in the year. Staff spends a lot of time putting the budget together. Our various directors do that as well throughout the summer and in June and July. At our last city council meeting, we had a work session right before the meeting where we spent essentially the work session talking about our budget, what we expected the budget to be, new positions that maybe we wanted to create or fill, old positions that maybe we wanted to eliminate or cut from the budget, and sort of figure out where we viewed the budget going for the year 2016. Because the problem is, the way the process works is that we have to establish essentially a preliminary levy in September here coming up, and we can't go any higher than that preliminary levy. So we need to know really what our budget's going to be for the year prior to that preliminary levy. We can reduce the levy in December or before, but we can't increase the levy. So we really need to have our budget figured out here in August or early September so that we can appropriately consider the process of levying taxes in September.
So if people are particularly concerned about some things that are happening in the city, because all the services cities provide cost money, right? That this is a good time maybe to be talking with your city council member or your mayor.
Absolutely.
To share ideas and thoughts with them.
Right, and one of the things that we do is we put our budget online so people can go and see what is the budget for, or what are we talking about for a budget for 2016. So if they have questions about budget items, they can go and look at it themselves.
And then when you have the work sessions that deal with the budget, that's always an open meeting too.
Absolutely, and we did have people there the other night for that process, so that's always part of our process.
So we encourage people, not everybody wants to follow budgets, but they're always concerned about the end result of it.
Right, and if whatever your interest is or whatever your concerns are, you should bring them up or be happy to be involved in them.
And this is the time to get some input in before you start finalizing the whole process, which goes from September to December, right?
Right. So if you want something in our budget, you want something out of our budget, now is the time to express that, because if you don't express it now, it's really too late for 2016.
Right. I want to thank you so much for all the information you shared and all the things that are happening in the city of Maple Grove. It's good to find things out, and I particularly enjoyed learning more about the TIF process. And then take time to share your thoughts and your ideas with your mayors and city council people, but also take time to gather information from your city staff people if there's an issue that is of particular concern to you. And we're glad that you're with us tonight, and we encourage you to join us again next week. Bye.